Concettina's Cucina. Today we are going to be making a Bolognese style meat sauce. For that meat sauce recipe, we are going to be following a favorite recipe of mine that has virgin olive oil, a medium onion, 2 garlic cloves, 1 celery stalk, a carrot, 1 pound of ground beef, a can of crushed tomatoes, but today I will be substituting pureed tomatoes, some parsley, fresh basil leaves, salt, pepper, and I'm going to just be using a Parmesan cheese. Here is a quick view of the recipe of what we're doing. So we're going to be heating that oil in a medium saucepan. The onion, the garlic are going to saute until they're tender. We're going to add celery, carrot, another 5 minutes. And then we're going to add that ground beef until, of course, it is well cooked. We're going to add our tomato, parsley, basil, salt, pepper to taste. And we're gonna let that sauce thicken for about 30 minutes. I leave it on low for actually a few hours to let that get really nice and flavored up. I'm gonna show you some ingredients that you will need today. Now let's take a look at some of those ingredients. You don't have to use exactly the same ingredients that I have. I'm just showing you some of the things that I will be using. So these are soup bones that will give your meat sauce a little added flavor. I've got a fresh basil leaf ready to go, onions, celery, carrots, garlic. There's the pureed tomatoes that I prefer using instead of the diced tomatoes, but you could obviously still go with the canned diced tomatoes. And then of course our ground beef. That is basically what we're using today. And now let's get started. Let's get our vegetables ready. We need to first, of course, wash our basil, cut it off of there, and get our celery and vegetables ready. You can see that we have celery, basil, carrots that I've already peeled, and an onion and some garlic that we will have to peel and chop up as well. Let's wash up those vegetables. I've already given them a good rinse. Let's get our onion and our garlic peeled and cut. We're going to mince the garlic and we're just going to be chopping up the onion. I'll show you how that's done. See, I've cut that off and now I'm going to peel it. And you can see that it is now peeled, ready to chop for the onion and ready to mince for the garlic. Just a reminder that today with all this chopping and of course that heat that we're going to be using on our stovetop, please have an adult present with you at all times, anytime you are trying any of these recipes. Now let's get this chopped and minced. So I'm just showing you that I did slice those down. I gave you half so that way we have a stable surface so that we can cut this very safely. And I've just started the process of getting these garlic pieces chopped up. So I will show you the end result, remembering we are using the claw method, so that way the knife is protecting, or sorry, the knuckle is protecting your finger from accidentally getting cut. Let's get that pot heated now. So I'm going to just turn up the heat. I'm gonna put it on high first, just to get that heated up quickly. Here's the chopped onion, and there's your minced garlic. Let's get that put into this pan. And we are going to now get the celery chopped up. And please make sure you use a wooden spoon to stir that. A metal spoon gets hot, so the wood definitely is not going to conduct that heat through. and you'll be safer. So we're gonna let that saute and wait until the onion turns translucent. And in the meantime, while that is cooking, we're gonna chop up our carrots and our celery, and I'm gonna turn down the heat because I have a gas stove. It is quite hot, so I'm just gonna turn it down a bit. So let's get the celery and carrots chopped up. Okay, it's coming along, but it's not quite there. We have the celery and the carrots chopped up, ready to add. I'm gonna let it saute for another few minutes. I'd like to get those onions sweetened up, and the way we do that is by just cooking them a little bit more. So let's wait a couple of minutes. Okay, that is getting a wonderful translucent color to it. It's ready to add those carrots and celery now. Give it a little stir. And we're gonna let that saute for about 5 minutes. We're gonna get our meat ready. So I'm gonna be adding my bones, and then I'm going to be adding my ground beef. That's been sauteing for 5 minutes. Let's say it's starting to get nicely cooked up. Now we're going to add our bones, because we want to get those sauteed. I'm gonna let these cook for just a few minutes before I add my ground beef, but if you are not adding bones, I would just go ahead and add your ground beef at this point. Okay, and we've added that ground beef to it, and now we're gonna try and get that sauteed up. I'm gonna mix it up so that we can get it evenly cooked through. That'll probably take a few minutes, and then once that's all sauteed, we're gonna add our pureed tomatoes. Add your salt and pepper to the ground beef now, and then once we have everything added and the beef is all cooked, we'll give it a little taste to see if we need any more seasonings in there. As you can see, it's starting to brown. We can see that it's cooking up very nicely, and I've been stirring it. Next, we're going to add our parsley that I've already chopped up, and I'm going to chop up the basil and add that in along with our tomato puree. And that looks nicely sauteed, nice and brown. Now we're going to add our puree tomatoes with our parsley and with our basil. After you've added that tomato in there, I would give it a little taste and see if you need to add any more salt or pepper, or if there's not a lot of garlic flavor, you might want to even add some garlic powder. That actually has a good flavor to it. And if you want to sweeten it up a little bit, you could always add a teaspoon of sugar in there, so we can see that it is starting to simmer. And I've added 3 of my bottles of that pureed tomato. And of course, you have to adjust your recipe accordingly. There's the meat sauce, the basil's in there, the parsley. I'm gonna leave it on the stove on a very low simmer. A little bit of bubbles that pop up and down. I'm gonna stir it around a few times as it starts to flavor up and get those flavors all throughout that sauce. And then I'm going to actually be making some lasagnas with that. I will be videoing that for you, and you can see how I put together the lasagnas for that. I hope you enjoy your sauce if you should decide to make it. And thank you so much for joining me today at Concetina's Cucina. Joining me next time, I will have a lasagna made with this beautiful sauce. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. All right, so welcome back to the day after. The sauce cooled down overnight, and now I'm going to be making that lasagna. So I've got Parmesan cheese, grated Parmesan cheese. I'm going to be using ricotta on one of the layers. I have my favorite noodles that I use. These lasagna noodles are ready to bake, but you could always buy noodles that you do need to first boil and then create your lasagna out of. But I like these. They're really easy to use and they taste just like homemade because they are made with egg. And then our mozzarella, and that is the dish that I will be using, and I'll show you how to combine them to make that wonderful lasagna that can be frozen, or you can cook it tonight when you're done making it. So we're starting to create our first layer. We're gonna take sauce first, and we wanna make sure and cover the bottom. If your sauce has thickened up because you left it overnight in the fridge, as I did, you do want to add some water to it because these noodles require a lot of moisture. So if your sauce is too dry, your lasagna will be too dry. So lots of sauce on the bottom. You can put even a little bit more because that's gonna get the most heat. And then you start layering these next to each other. This is kind of like the ideal pan dish to put it into because it's nice and square, which, you know, these are rectangular and works out really well. So you just cut those up like that and you make it fit. It doesn't have to be exact. Now for this layer, I'm actually going to put ricotta. So I'm gonna put this whole container. It's not a very big container. This one is 280 grams. You can always split it up in between the layers if you like, but I like to just give it one thick layer on the bottom, and then you want to spread it out evenly. And of course, if you like more, you're going to want to buy more of that ricotta. Now, some people also use cottage cheese. It really just depends on what you like. I like ricotta because that's what I was brought up on. That's what I grew up on. So that's what I like. But of course, cottage cheese works just as well. So there's our ricotta layer. Now I'm gonna go in another direction with the noodles because if you can imagine, it's like a weave. When you start to dish this out, you don't want the lasagna to just flop and fall apart. So I always kind of do opposite angles on the different layers. So again, we've got some pasta, and now I'm gonna go again with my sauce. And coat it with the sauce. And now we're gonna start to add our cheeses. If you wanted to add spinach, oh, there's one of my bones from the sauce because of that flavor that I showed you when I made it yesterday. So if you wanted to add spinach, you could always just take that spinach and add it in here as a nice little layer as well. So I'm gonna take a little bit of mozzarella cheese, just a sprinkling, because I still have probably another 3 layers to go. So you don't wanna put too much. Then I'm gonna take my Parmesan cheese and sprinkle that on. And remember, we're gonna do about 3 more layers so you don't have to coat it in one. And now we're gonna start another layer. And you're gonna notice I'm putting it on in another direction. And we're gonna keep doing this, and we're gonna show you the final product in just a minute. And we are just starting our last layer with the lasagna, and voila, that is ready. I'm going to put my plastic wrap on there, and that's going to actually go in the freezer today, and I'm gonna freeze it and use it on another time. Just before we go, I am going to put a little bit of water over top, just like that, so that those noodles will get a little bit more moisture, so that our lasagna will be nice and moist. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson on making meat sauce and then a lasagna. And with that meat sauce, you can make spaghetti, you can make cannelloni, manicotti. There's a lot of things that you can put that meat sauce on. And that is pretty much it for today. So thank you so much for joining me in Cucina's Cucina and a nice Italian homemade lasagna. There is your cooked lasagna with a nice golden color on the edges, nice melted mozzarella cheese on top. Voila!